In internal audit operations, we're going to look how chief audit executives manage their internal audit functions from a strategic perspective, also from an operational perspective. We're going to look a little bit about the communication and the reporting lines that they have and the different styles of leadership. So from a strategic perspective, there are a certain number of things that the chief audit executive needs to make sure are in place. They should actually make sure that their team adheres to a code of ethics. Why? Because it is very easy to lose the reputation that your internal audit department has gained over time. Very easy to lose it if every single member of the audit team is not working by the most ethical of different principles. And of course, we have the code of conduct from the Institute of Internal Auditors to help us on that. There's also the standards from the Institute of Internal Auditors. Now, the chief audit executive will make sure that the function itself follows those standards that have been adopted. The second thing is that the chief audit executive should make sure that internal audit holds a strategic role. Now, think about this for a second. You could have an internal audit function. It's basically just doing checks. It's like part of the other departments. It is like a control function, but that's not really what internal audit is. Internal audit is supposed to be a strategic function across the entire organization. It is cross-functional. It is not going to stop at one point. It is not about checking controls. It is not even about checking just risks in certain operations. It's going to look at what is important for the entire organization to meet its objectives. That's what makes it strategic. So the risks it's going to look at are strategic risks into internal audit reports, at least the parts communicated to the audit committee, is indeed exactly what the board of directors and senior management are going to care about. Those are the strategic things. If something does not meet the criteria of being strategic, then it probably doesn't need to be reported at the board of director level in the organization. And the chief audit executive should make sure that internal audit holds a strategic role. Internal audit has to support the ethics of the entire organization. We are role models as internal auditors and acting in a way that is appropriate, but also shaping the ethics of the entire organization. So we can give recommendations that will move towards a more ethical stance in the organization. We can suggest trainings that are ethics-based trainings. We can suggest different things that will improve the ethics of the organization and report whenever we believe there are any deficiencies to the ethics in the organization. And of course, in a strategic way, the chief audit executive needs to make sure that the efficiency and the effectiveness, in other words, the overall performance of the internal audit function is properly monitored. And we have certain tools for that, such as key performance indicators or a benchmarking against quality assessment standards that we can use to assess the performance of the internal audit function itself. Finally, the chief audit executive on a strategic level needs to make sure proper cooperation and coordination with a whole group of other actors. Now, of course, you know your audit committee, your board of directors, your management, that's understood. But think in an organization, you're going to have a number of assurance providers. Assurance providers are different functions that look at the risks of their particular field and will perform controls, such as the Chief Information Security Officer looks at information security risk. The Data Protection Officer looks at the privacy of data and tries to protect employee and client data. A chief audit executive should make sure a proper coordination and a proper cooperation with all of these internal assurance providers. There are some external assurance providers, such as external audits as well. And I'm going to say much more largely all the other functions in the organization that can help get a better assurance over the risks in the operations of the company or the organization. Now let's look at this from an operational perspective and what internal audit should do at a really operational level. So in internal audit function itself should have proper policies and procedures. Now, these need to be adapted to the function itself. That is to say, if an internal audit function is 2 people, maybe you don't need the same level of policies and procedures as a 150 person internal audit team. Nonetheless, there are some critical things that aren't for the team itself, but for the entire organization. So I'm going to say that nearly regardless of the size of your internal audit function, you are going to want to have an internal audit charter, which defines the roles and the responsibilities of the internal audit function itself. Now, that is an external facing policy, and internally have the proper procedures, have the proper processes in place to ensure the quality of internal audit work, to inform management on the risks and the internal control effectiveness. Now, not just management, we know, of course, we report on deficiencies to our audit committee and to our board of directors, but helping our management, I'm going to say at all levels, so at the senior management level, but also at other levels of management, so middle management, et cetera, all the way to head of function, for instance, we're going to help them know about the risks in their functions, maybe some that they didn't know about, and the effectiveness and efficiency of the controls that they have in place. We need to make sure that the audit function is well managed. So especially if you have several ranks of hierarchy within an internal audit function, the overall responsibility goes to the chief audit executive. That's understood. But if you have an audit director, is there proper supervision by the chief audit executive to the audit director, from the audit director, let's say, to the audit manager, to the manager, to the senior, from the senior to the more junior members of an internal audit team? We need to make sure that there are the processes in place so that everyone in the internal audit team can make sure that they are giving the best output that they can for the organization. And finally, an important point, and I'm going to say an absolutely mandatory point as well, is that you have a risk-based internal audit plan. Risk-based means that you have performed assessments of the risks. Since we understood that we are a strategic function, these risks should be strategic risks, at least at the higher level. We should ensure that we have strategic risks and that we are properly planning our internal audit work on a multi-annual basis, usually, to make sure that all of the risks are going to be covered in a time period that is appropriate. And so we absolutely need a risk-based internal audit plan and assessments at different levels to make sure that the department is working on the risks that it should be looking at. Let's look at leadership versus management skills. Now, these are two concepts that seem to be related, but are actually slightly different. So let's look at this. Under leadership and under management, we have different areas of responsibility. The idea is that under leadership, you're rather setting a vision and a strategy and kind of motivating others to achieve it. Now, I'm not going to say some people are leaders and others managers. Some people might be more leaders and more managers. I think that especially at the chief audit executive, you should be a little bit more of a leader and still keep an adequate level of management of the operations, but you're never supposed to be just one without the other. So I'm rather setting out different qualities that chief audit executives should be. Now, when you're looking at, say, audit directors or audit managers or even audit seniors, I still want to see these qualities of leadership at their level that they have. And of course, that's how you get promoted to a higher level, even if your team is just a few people, or even if you are just a team of a single person at your particular level. Now, for the different tasks that we would look at the manager level or managing level, planning, organizing, monitoring, everyone needs to do these things right down to a senior level. But at the leadership level, we're really trying to make sure that we would have a more strategic vision of these different tasks, such as acceptable risk, ensuring financial stability. So in these tasks that we have, we're looking indeed at a more organizational wide level, at a more, let me call it enterprise risk management level, a more strategic level, even at the level of a department. When it comes to the people, a manager is going to try to build teams, manage people, give feedback. All of these are important things that need to be done. But a leadership level will try to inspire a team to achieve the objectives, not purely by themselves. Even for your chief audit executive, the team can try to gain a certain amount of autonomy under proper supervision, of course. And the approach is different as well at the manager approach as opposed to a leadership approach. In the management approach, we're going to try to create a supportive environment, develop different opportunities for development. In the leadership vision of this, we're going to try to motivate and inspire our teams to become the best team that they can be. Let us look at a management control and different management control techniques. I'm going to look at these on a spectrum. And I'm going to say that every person is different. People have different views on whether they would like something a little bit more autocratic, that's a little bit more forceful, or more participative. I'm even going to say that there is no one size fits all. I have seen chief audit executives going from one organization and seemingly be very autocratic to another organization, and then understanding that in that organization, you are not going to treat your very expensive, let's say, software developers or IT engineers in the same way that you might treat other employees that would need more guidance at, say, a different organization. And so your approach should actually be adapted to the organization that you are looking at. So let's look at this spectrum. At the autocratic level, it is to coerce. That means if you are coercing someone to something, you are really forcing them. This is forcing someone. This really means that you do not have a proper control on your team if you are using this kind of team's approach. You could control information, that is to say, only give certain parts of information to people. And it's because you control information that you retain control, such as management needs you because you're the only one who knows how to do this certain thing. I don't think that's a good approach. Indeed, you might leave and then, well, the department breaks down. But that is not the right way we'd like to see functions. I believe the best chief audit executives or other people in an internal audit team build others below them so that if something happens to them, they get a much better paying job. Then the rest of the team will be able to take over. And I know some people use tactics like controlling information so that they seem essential, but that is not the right approach to take. A certain number of people establishing accountability. Now, this is something that I find extremely important and is something that I, of course, would do. It can be at the level of a task. Now, if someone feels that they are responsible and accountable for something, then they know that if that thing isn't well performed, it is indeed their failure in not properly performing that task. They are accountable for that. You can do that at the level of breaking down an audit work program and assigning different tasks to people. It could be at the level of assigning different engagements as well. So, in any case, establishing proper accountability for whatever work needs to be done, measuring and evaluating the performance. This should be done in every single team where the person in one level above should verify the performance of everyone below them. And of course, at the chief audit executive level, make sure that the entire internal audit function is giving high level of quality and a high level of value to the entire organization. You can delegate authority, you should trust, but you should verify. So there is always, even at this level, an idea that there should be proper supervision.